Macronutrients and your brain. Macronutrients are the main building blocks of our foods, the fats, the carbohydrates, and proteins that we eat in grams or ounces in macro amounts that provide us with energy. It's important to understand the components of our food. It's important to understand the macronutrients, the fats, the carbs and protein, and our micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals, so that we can learn how to create balanced meals from a template versus always feeling like we're either on a plan or off a plan, following a diet that doesn't necessarily make sense to us from an intuitive level. I want to teach you how to work with a template and to build your meals and balance your nutrition with this knowledge. And this knowledge can give you control and freedom to regulate how we feel through the types of nutrients we give our bodies as fuel. And our bodies, to make fuel, use fats, carbs, and protein primarily. So I want to start with protein because proteins are the building blocks of our bodies. Proteins form our skin, our teeth, our bones, our hair, and so on. Our bodies are essentially protein sacs filled with water. Proteins are made up of amino acids that stick together like beads on a string and are arranged and assembled in folded clumps that control different chemical reactions. So, for example, our neurotransmitters are made of amino acids. Tryptophan is an amino acid that we don't get from food, so it's called an essential amino acid. And tryptophan gets turned into 5-HTP, which then gets turned into serotonin, our happy hormone, and melatonin, our sleep hormone. Tyrosine is another amino acid that gets turned into dopamine, which controls our mood, concentration, and motivation. It's our excited, sort of motivated, productive neurochemical. Tyrosine also gets turned into thyroid hormone and stress hormones, norepinephrine and epinephrine. We need both of those stress hormones for energy and for a healthy stress response. Glycine is an amino acid that's found in gelatin and collagen. It forms the bones, the teeth, the joints, and skin, the structural protein of our bodies. Glycine is also important for detoxification, and it actually acts as a neurotransmitter in and of itself, calming the nervous system. It also can regulate blood sugar after a meal and help with sleep. Cysteine is an amino acid needed for detoxification and mitochondrial function. So, our mitochondria are our cells' furnaces, and we'll talk about more of those later. N-acetylcysteine is a common supplement I use to support my patients with bipolar disorder, ADHD, and OCD. And we're going to talk more on N-acetylcysteine, or NAC, in the mitochondrial chapter. 9 amino acids can only be obtained from food, so they are essential. Our bodies don't make them themselves. A food that contains all 9 amino acids is called a complete protein. This includes all animal foods and plant foods like soy, quinoa, spirulina, pea, and broccoli, to name a few. But a plant food containing complete protein does not necessarily mean that that food is high in protein, or that that protein is all going to be absorbed into your body. For example, only about 50% of the protein from peanuts is absorbed. And broccoli is a complete protein, but it's not a particularly high protein food. Protein can help regulate blood sugar and reduce the glycemic index of our foods. It allows us to maintain constant blood sugar levels. We're going to get into blood sugar a lot later on in this course. Even in the absence of meals, like when we're sleeping at night or between meals, and it's very important for satiety and for nervous system regulation. Carbohydrates. Carbs are sugars. Complex carbohydrates are long chains of glucose, also called starches. They exist mainly in root vegetables, grains, and legumes. Monosaccharides, which means just one sugar, and disaccharides, 2 sugars, taste sweet. Table sugar is a disaccharide containing glucose and fructose is often found in fruit. It's a monosaccharide. Our body's preferred energy source is glucose, a monosaccharide. Glucose enters our cells with the aid of a hormone called insulin. Much more on that later, to create energy for our body to work. Our brain uses up 60% of the glucose in our blood. So our brains are very carb heavy and they take most of the energy that we have. Excess levels of carbs get stored by the body for later use in the form of body fat. Our bodies need to maintain a stable level of blood glucose to be healthy. When glucose spikes in the blood, this isn't a good thing. It's the main pathway driving the disease process in type 2 diabetes. High blood sugar can cause issues with our small blood vessels, like our kidneys, our fingers, toes, eyes, and our brain cells. Glucose is toxic to our bodies when present in high amounts, and it can drive inflammation. When glucose is low, this is also bad. Not only does it trigger a stress response, it actually increases cortisol to be released, our stress hormone. Low blood sugar can cause dizziness, irritability, anxiety, extreme fatigue, migraines, and other symptoms, those hangry symptoms that are often the result of hypoglycemia or low blood sugar. Very low carb diets can be a source of stress on the body, triggering cortisol, our stress hormone. Therefore, having carbs at dinner when cortisol should be lower can help with sleep and prevent feeling tired and wired at nighttime. Eating carbs on their own, though, like having cereal in the morning for breakfast as your only breakfast food, or a donut for a snack, can actually cause blood sugar to go on a roller coaster, cause inflammation and possible insulin resistance. And again, we're going to talk way more on this later. This is a big topic for mental health. Fat fat is an alternative energy source to glucose. When we consume an excess of energy from carbs, protein, or dietary fat, our body stores this energy in the form of body fat. Certain hormones like leptin, insulin, glucagon, norepinephrine, and epinephrine will also control this process. So they will tell the body to put on fat or to take away fat. We also need fat for brain function, to control inflammation, to absorb certain vitamins like vitamin D, and for joints, bones, and the protection of our bodies. Our brain is mostly fat. Cell membranes are made of fats. So think of the electric wiring in your house. Our brain cells are kind of like that. They conduct electrical impulses, and these electrical impulses are what makes us think, desire, feel, etc. A fatty membrane or cell membrane coats these nerve cells and allows the electrical impulses to move more quickly, just like rubber wiring, rubber insulation around the wiring of your house. Leaky cell membranes can cause mood issues, inflammation, irritability, anxiety, and other mental health and psychiatric conditions. Imagine a rat chewing through the rubber insulation of the wiring in your house. This will inevitably cause those electrical impulses to short circuit. Cholesterol is needed to support those cell membranes. This is why low cholesterol is associated with cognitive decline and aggression in primates and in humans. Getting the right kind of fats that are stable and anti-inflammatory is very important for supporting cell membranes so that they are fluid yet stable and not leaky. Cholesterol also forms the backbone of our hormones, like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and even our stress hormone cortisol, which is essential for our mental health and stress resilience. Fat can be divided into two types: saturated fat and unsaturated fat. Saturated fat is found in animals and some plants like coconut oil. These fats tend to be solid at room temperature. Unsaturated fat comes mainly from nuts, vegetables, and fish. Unsaturated fats can further be divided into two types: monounsaturated fats like macadamia nuts, avocado, and olives, and polyunsaturated fats that are found in vegetable oils, nuts, and seeds, and fish. Further to that, we can divide up polyunsaturated fats. So think of like a tree dividing and dividing and dividing. Polyunsaturated fats can be divided into omega 3s and omega 6s. Omega 3s are found in fish, in walnuts, and in flax. And omega 6s are found in vegetable oils, nuts, and seeds, but also those processed seed vegetable oils that dominate our diet today. And we're going to get into that in the fats chapter. There's also omega 9s, which we won't talk about here. But to make a long story short, omega 3s and monounsaturated fats are the heart healthier choices. Omega 3s provide anti inflammatory benefits. This is why many of us supplement with fish oils or omega 3s to support our heart health, our brain health, and our mood, and to lower inflammation. And saturated fat gets a lot of grief, but it actually is good for you in many ways. In the 1900s, 99% of the fats in the diet were saturated, from butter and lard mainly. And at that time, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and obesity were virtually unheard of. Saturated fats protect our cell membranes and they resist oxidation in the bloodstream because they're so stable at body temperature. In short, we need fat. We need fat to absorb our vitamins, particularly the fat soluble vitamins, vitamins A, D, E, and K. We need fats to promote hormonal regulation, to boost brain function, to manage inflammation, and to provide us with energy. And while carbs are not essential, so they are produced by the body, and therefore we don't necessarily need them from diet. Certain fatty acids and amino acids are essential. We can only get them from food. So if you don't eat them, you don't get them. A healthy diet contains a balance of all three macros: fats, carbs, and protein. Our macros contribute to the calories or the energy of our diet. And the recommended ratios of carbs, fat to protein can change depending on our activity levels, our age, our weight, and our health goals. I don't recommend tracking macros unless you're trying to work on very specific health goals. However, sometimes tracking your protein can be helpful to see what it feels like to hit a threshold of 90 to 150 grams a day to stabilize mood and blood sugar and to keep your blood glucose even throughout the day and your mood stable throughout the day. For example, those looking to regulate mood and hormones often do better increasing their protein and fat intake, particularly in the morning. And those who want to bulk or build more muscle do better increasing their carb and protein intake, especially after a hard workout. Increasing protein and decreasing carbohydrates is often used to help people lose weight because it lowers insulin, regulates blood sugar, and boosts metabolism. Increasing fat intake can help regulate blood sugar as well and increase satiation and flavor in the food that we're eating. And so a balanced plate of macronutrients would look like a plate that's half full of veggies, maybe a quarter filled with a protein food, and maybe an eighth of oils or fat, or a 1 cup serving of starch, like rice, quinoa, or a legume like chickpeas, lentils, or potatoes. So the weekly challenge for this week is in the Mood Diet ebook, and it'll have examples of what a carb would look like and what a protein or a fat looks like, and how, and some meal ideas to balance your macronutrients. Keep in mind, however, that it's rare to find a food that's just one macronutrient. For example, chicken breast maybe is an example of a almost pure protein, but black beans, while they're included in the list under protein-rich foods, they have about 3 times the amount of carbs that they do protein. Chickpeas have about 10 times the amount of carbs as protein. And so they're a combination of those two macronutrients primarily. Oils might be pure fat, but nuts and seeds combine carbs and protein as well, but they also are mostly fat. Grains and root vegetables mostly contain carbohydrate, but some, like quinoa, do contain small amounts of protein. And therefore, getting a balanced whole foods diet is essential for getting the ingredients that your body needs to function.